I get it, you're standing in the kitchen aisle of your mind, scrolling through endless options, trying to avoid that gut punch feeling of splurging on a slicer that ends up gathering dust. You don't want to waste money on a machine that can't keep up with the weekend barbecues or the daily sandwich prep for a small deli, but you also can't afford to buy something that's overkill for a home kitchen. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. What you really need is a clear sense of whether the Globe Slicer G12a will actually slide into your routine without turning your countertop into a mini factory, and whether the price tag matches the real-world payoff. Let's start with the kind of setup most people have. Imagine you're a home chef who loves making deli-style turkey, roast beef, and cheese for a family of 4. You have a decent amount of counter space, maybe a sturdy table that can support a 12-inch rotating blade, and you're comfortable handling a small motor. You're not looking to slice a whole turkey in one go, but you do want consistent, thin slices for sandwiches and salads, and you'd like to avoid the jagged edges that a kitchen knife can sometimes produce. That's the sweet spot where the Globe G12a lands. It's marketed as a medium-duty slicer, which means it's built to handle everyday proteins and cheeses without the heavy-duty industrial frame you'd find in a commercial kitchen. Who should buy it? If you run a small catering business out of your garage, or you host weekly brunches that require a steady flow of smoked salmon and roast beef, the G12a's 12-inch blade gives you enough surface to work with while staying compact enough to store on a shelf when you're not using it. The automatic feed mechanism is a real time saver. You slide the meat onto the carriage, set your desired thickness, and let the slicer do the work. It's especially handy when you're preparing larger batches. Think a Sunday roast that needs to be sliced for sandwiches throughout the week. For home cooks who enjoy experimenting with charcuterie boards, the ability to dial in a precise 1mm slice versus a generous 5mm cut makes the difference between a board that looks professional and one that feels amateur. On the flip side, if you're just looking for a tool to occasionally slice a ham for a holiday dinner, you might be better off with a high-quality chef's knife or a handheld mandolin. The G12a does require a bit of initial learning, getting the carriage to glide smoothly, adjusting the blade guard, and cleaning the blade after each use. Those who aren't comfortable with a bit of mechanical fiddling might find the setup a little intimidating. Also, the machine is not designed for ultra-thin sushi-grade fish. The blade speed and torque are tuned for sturdier proteins. So if your primary use case is delicate sashimi, you'll probably be disappointed. Now, let's talk about practical strengths. The biggest win for the G12a is its consistency. Once you lock in a thickness, the slicer reproduces it slice after slice with minimal variance. That's something you can't guarantee with a handheld knife, especially if you're trying to keep a steady hand while juggling other kitchen tasks. The automatic feed also reduces the risk of accidental cuts, because your hands stay away from the blade for most of the operation. In terms of cleanup, the blade can be detached without tools, and the carriage can be rinsed under a faucet, though you'll still need to be diligent about wiping down the motor housing to keep grease from building up. A practical weakness is the noise level. The motor is strong enough to push through a thick roast, but it does hum louder than a typical countertop blender. If you have an open-plan kitchen that shares space with a living area, the sound might be a minor annoyance. Another point to consider is the power draw. The slicer needs a dedicated 120V outlet, and it's not the sort of device you'd want to plug into a power strip that's already running a microwave and a coffee maker. That's a small logistical hurdle, but it's something to keep in mind if your kitchen outlets are already maxed out. From a value perspective, the G12a sits in a price bracket that's higher than a simple mandolin, but lower than a full-size commercial slicer. For the money, you're getting a machine that can handle a decent volume of work without needing frequent blade replacements. The 12-inch stainless steel blade is built to stay sharp through dozens of uses, provided you keep it clean. The real cost saver comes in the long run. Slicing by hand means more time, more waste from uneven cuts, and more wear on your knives. If you're regularly preparing large quantities of meat, the time you reclaim can translate into lower labor costs if you're running a small business, or simply more free hours on the weekend at home. There are a few hidden trade-offs that only become clear after the first few weeks.